Good evening, everyone. Hope all is well. So, we are now going to be going live with a property investor, trader, developer, SDGB properties. And let me just send him an invite quickly. So, super. Here we go.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. And yourself? I can't see you though.
Oh, can you see me now?
Nope.
Oh,
Not yet. Maybe it might take some time for you to come on.
cool. Okay.
Uh, just give it a second. Can you see me though?
Yeah, I can see you. I can see myself as well. So it's split screen. Let's just try this. Can you see me now? Or is it
Nope.
still?
It's just showing me right now.
Oh, it's really strange. So if anyone's listening and you can see me as well, just give us a wave, maybe.
Yeah, can you see both of us? Anyone, if you can. Hello? I think you've gone. Back. House Proskin, can you see me now?
Let's try now.
Here we go.
There we go. Right. Okay.
How are
Sorry
you
for the
doing?
technical difficulties. Good. All good. Thank you. How's things with you?
So far, so good. Thank you so much for taking the time out today and coming on this live. And the whole point of me doing this live is to share the knowledge as to what different people do in different professions within their life, how they built their careers, their portfolios, what are they doing different right now. It's to share that knowledge and to share the positivity because there's a lot of negative sentiment every day that is being dropped upon us, and to just sort of put that negative sentiment aside and lift yourself with the positive energy that you may give today, I may give today, and to move forward in life. So, before we start our conversation, if you can introduce yourself as to who you are and what you do, and then we can get the conversation going.
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me on first and foremost, and sorry for the technical difficulties, I
It's
guess.
all
I'm
right.
just in the car, as you can see, so all just on the move. But yeah, so my name's Saif Darzi. I'm sort of, I've got multiple businesses within property, I guess you can say. So investor, developer, trader as well of property. So I didn't start my career out in property. I started my career out in the pharmaceutical world. So I was a
Okay.
pharmacist at a pharmaceutical business
Sure.
as well. And
Sure.
then I got into property, and sort of for me the end goal was always property, and I always had that passion for property as well. So that's the reason that it's kept me within there for so long, and
Of
that's probably the
course.
reason that I'm not so much more into the pharmaceutical industry, because I just didn't have that passion for it. So I've really sort of started to scale things up within the last 2 years. So I've bought and sold about 50 properties within the last two
Wow.
years. And I'm just really starting to grow the business, grow the team, and grow the right people around me, really.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. Saif, you mentioned that you were in the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, you're still doing it, right?
Sure.
What sort of inspired you to become a pharmacist? Was it in the family? Was it your parents? Or was it just a lot of different your friends, associates doing the same thing and you got into it? I mean, as a child, were you thinking that you want to get into that scientific field of
Yeah.
pharmaceutical industry, or was it something to be like a lawyer, a doctor, or an
I think
accountant?
it was just one of these things that looked safe and secure at the time, I guess. For me, it's one of these things where when you're growing up, it's like, oh, would you become a lawyer, a doctor, an accountant, like you said, a pharmacist? So for me, I was just like, well, I don't know why, to be totally honest with you, but I chose pharmacy, probably because I thought that I was going to get into the business side of it, and there was more of a business behind it, rather than becoming a doctor necessarily, where it was just very strict as a career
So
progression.
who earns more, a doctor or a pharmaceutical?
A doctor earns more, but if you're in the pharmaceutical business, you'll earn more than a doctor. Let's put it that way. So if you're actually a pharmacist,
Can you
you're not
take
going
me
to earn
through
as much as
this?
a doctor. Yeah, so so in terms of pharmaceuticals in general, doing the business side of things. So say, for example, you wanted to set up your own wholesale business. So if you want to buy and sell medicines, you've got to be a pharmacist, or you've got to have a registered pharmacist to register your company, and obviously your premises as well.
Okay.
And obviously, I don't know, say for example, a
So
doctor's salary.
does it work like a wholesaler of
Exactly.
food, for
Exactly.
example? I go out, I go to the different countries or something to buy rice, oil, all that kind of stuff. So is it the same way that a pharmaceutical industry runs? Like if I had a pharmaceutical brand with me and I was registered as a pharmacist, I could go out and buy dozens and dozens of medicines from all around the world and bring them, stock them here, and then distribute it to other pharmacies, including my own outlet.
You've got it. You've got it. That's exactly it. And most of what we were doing was buying from UK manufacturers and exporting abroad, because a lot of people like the UK brands and like UK manufactured products. So that's pretty much what we were doing. But just to bring you back onto that point, so an average salary for a pharmacist could be 40 to 50,000 pound. An average salary for a doctor could be, I don't know, let's say 80,000 pound to 100,000 pound, for example. But in order to get into the business side of things as a pharmacist, you can make much more than 100,000 pound. But for me, in terms of the business side, I just didn't have that passion for it. So that's why I ended up exiting that side of the business.
So you could possibly, so you have your salary that you get, which is like the 40K, 60K salary. And then while you are buying wholesale medicines, you could sell them as well to other pharmacies and obviously build on that, the
Exactly.
cash flow side of things. How many pharmacies did you run at one given point?
So what I was doing was I was helping a lot of the UK manufacturers to export their products abroad. So
Okay.
what my role was really is I was a business development arm for them. So a lot of them basically didn't have the capacity to be able to export abroad. So I was there saying to them, look, here's our company. We understand how to export abroad. We understand all the red tape around the regulation of exporting abroad. And we've got the team that can obviously deliver that as well. And that's why they used us, because they were mainly sort of focused on the UK market. And that's how we sort of helped them. But that sort of, I'm taking you back about 5 years now, and I've run that business, and that business sort of started to sort of wind that business up slowly as I went along. And I started to really scale up what I was doing in property, because I made a bit of money out of that, and then decided, right, the best place to do, the best place to put the money is back
And
in
while
property.
you were doing this wholesaling, you had your own pharmacy as well that you were prescribing drugs from?
Yeah, I was working in the pharmacy while I had the business, and then I
Okay.
left the pharmacy career,
Okay.
really focused on that business, and then I started the sort of, I guess you could say, property business alongside that one. And now I'm sort of fully focused on the property business. But that's the whole point of being an entrepreneur, right? It takes you through lots of different journeys, and you go from A to B to C.
So
But if you've
question
never
I have
started,
for you here, as a pharmaceutical, sorry, I'm going back to the pharmaceutical before I get into the property bit,
that's fine.
because, the last whole week I've been discussing properties, and, people want to hear about different things that individuals like yourself are doing. So as a pharmaceutical person, is it possible for me to go out and open 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 outlets if I wanted to in the whole of London? Is that possible? Does the government give you that license, or no, you can just have one?
You can just have one. There's a lot of regulation around it. So in reality, you can have multiple if you wanted to, so you can have a chain. But the reality is it's very regulated in terms of where you can open them up, because obviously they need to be a certain distance away from each other. There's certain competition rules as well in terms of being in close proximity. But technically, as a pharmacist, you can go and open as many as you want.
Can I, just regarding that competition and the distance you mentioned, if I drive down Edgware Road
Yeah,
or Knightsbridge
yeah.
or Chelsea, Mayfair, Kensington, I mean, I'm sure you drove down there as well, and you will see the amount of pharmacies that are within close distance to each other.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Edgware Road isn't that far from Knightsbridge. So how do they get their, I mean, Prince Pharmacy, I'm sure you've
The
heard of
reason,
them, right?
yeah, yeah, of
Prince,
course.
they have like at least six, starting all the way from Kensington, going all the way to Edgware Road in that triangle that people, the Golden Triangle, you know. So
Yeah.
how do they
So
possibly get that license?
the reason they have that is because it's historical licenses, and a lot of these new regulations have been sort of brought in step by step, I
Got you.
guess. So a lot of those, so if you look at Edgware Road, a lot of those licenses were back in the day that they started, and
Got
they
you.
traded hands. So a lot of people started to buy the pharmacies and sell them on. And then you've got the big multiples that sort of just kept on buying and just growing. So you might have two multiples that are next to each other, that in reality, one was
They're
one
different.
pharmacy one day and then one was the other pharmacy, but they've just bought them both and they put them on the same brand. So yeah, a lot of that is sort of historical that they've done that.
But as of today, you can't do that. You have to have only one, and then that also has to be at a certain distance from the other pharmacy, so you don't jeopardize that person's business.
Exactly. Exactly. So basically, obviously, they don't want monopolization of the market, and it's sort of anti-competition rules, I guess you can say. So the way that they've set it out is, if you want to apply for a new license for a new pharmacy today, it's got to be within a certain radius away from the closest pharmacy.
And does it depend on every pharmacy that they can sell the drug at whatever price they want, or no, it has to be a certain guideline from the government or the hospitals or something like that, that they have to regulate themselves on the prices? Or I can just pick up the drug like paracetamol, and because my shop is in Knightsbridge, for example, my pharmacy is in Knightsbridge, I can go and sell that same packet of drug that you can get in Tesco's for
Yeah.
£5.99. I could sell it at £10.99 just because of the location. So
Yeah.
so that can be done. So I
It
could.
can be done only for medicines that you can buy over the counter, but the prescription medicines are regulated in terms of how much you actually get back reimbursed from the government, if that makes sense.
Got you.
So yeah, basically, the long and short of it is, if you go into a pharmacy and buy something over the counter, they can charge whatever they want in reality. If you're buying, or if you get something on a prescription, the pharmacy can only get back a certain amount from the government, so it's reimbursed from the government for that.
So they can't go any higher or lower than what they would want to sell that drug
Exactly.
at. It's
Exactly.
good to know that. So coming back to property now, Saif, when did you decide that pharmacy is not for you, and to sort of get up in life, you need to get onto property?
So this was back in 2015. And when
And
I
why
sort
did
of,
you decide that?
yeah, so for me, I sort of made a bit of money from that business, the pharmaceutical business. And then I decided, right, I want a safe place to put this. So a lot of people will just, go out and spend that money, buy a brand new car or whatever, just lots of materialistic items. And I decided that wasn't really for me. So I wanted to go and invest that money. And the natural thing for me was really property. So it wasn't something I knew loads about, but it was just something I did a bit of research into. I bought a very vanilla property at the time. It was just a 2-bed flat in Manchester. And the career went from there. And the reason I really enjoyed it was because, for anyone that's invested into property, it's one of these assets that, A, generally goes up in value. I'm not going to say the word definitely, but generally goes up in value. B, it pays you every single month. And C, if you set and forget it, the amount of compound that you get from it, so the rent just comes in and it just compounds, and you can just buy more and more property from that if you're not touching that
Of
income.
course.
It's just phenomenal. So it's a really, really good asset class. It's a really good vehicle, and it's a good long-term wealth builder as well.
And did you have that knowledge of, okay, when you went to go and buy your 2-bed flat in Manchester, did you have that knowledge of what you need to do, how you need to go about it, sort of which is the best property to, or which is the best location to put my funds into, so I get that good return coming in every month? Or you just went, no, it's Manchester, I can afford that, and that's what I will do?
No, so for me at the time, I was living in Manchester.
Okay.
So what I looked for, so these are the fun, and this is again just coming back to that entrepreneurial spirit, if you want to say,
Sure.
is I looked at the fundamentals. So I didn't go for the city centre, high-rise, expensive new build apartment. I went for the cheapest block in one of one of the nicer areas. Let's just say, for example. So, for me, I went on the outskirts of Manchester. and I went as close as possible to Salford Quays because I knew BBC was going to go in there. They had the whole media outlets were all there. So I went there and I bought in one of the cheapest blocks within that new complex, let's just say. And the other thing was I tracked the prices for a while. So I just kept on tracking them on Rightmove, seeing how much they're selling for in that same street. I was very specific and targeted. I waited for a property to come up. It was I believe it was £110,000. Someone beat me to it and ended up buying it. But the agent then phoned me up saying, I've got a lady that's going back to China and she's actually looking at getting rid of her flat. It's not even on the market yet. What would you want to give for it? And I didn't even see the property at the time, to be honest with you. I just offered them, I think, 90,000. He came back and said she'll take 94,000. She wants to just get rid of the property. Are you interested? Gave them 94,000. I think the rental on that one at the time was about 650. Now it's 750. And now it's, I mean, that same property is worth.
And you still have that one property from 2 years ago. You still have
that was from 5 years ago. So that was 2015 that I first bought that one.
2015. Yep.
2018 I remortgaged it and it was worth about 130. So you know, you can build up equity.
And you didn't have to do any work to it. You just had a sitting tenant there. You took it on. The rent was paid. Did you get any kind of mortgage on it or any sort of finance?
Yeah, just a very, very vanilla mortgage. So 75% mortgage. So I put 25% down, took out 75% mortgage. It's gone up in value because it went up more than how much I put into it. So I ended up releasing all of my equity from it. So in 2018, took my equity from it, went and bought another property with that equity. And I still had the cash flow coming in from the first flat. So that then made me realize that, okay, hold on a second. There's a scalable model here where you can buy something, either add the value yourself and force the appreciation, or you can actually wait for the appreciation in certain situations. So I wasn't patient enough to wait for the appreciation. So I said, right, we need to buy undervalue properties, add the value, force appreciation, refinance them, and build the portfolio that way. And that's how we started to scale the business.
And did you just concentrate on Manchester at that time, or it was in other locations up north that you went to?
No, so that was when I was living in Manchester at the time. After I moved back from Manchester to an area called Lincoln, so that's in the East Midlands.
Okay.
And I sort of just started to focus on student HMO properties around Lincoln, and that's how then it grew. And now, in terms of geographical area, we cover Nottinghamshire, Lincolnshire, and Yorkshire as well. So we cover all these three geographical areas.
So anywhere from Midlands going up, sort of thing.
Midlands to Yorkshire, let's just say. We don't go too far north. No, it's mainly East Midlands that we operate in.
And you have a team that looks after your properties, that manages your properties. How does the rent sort of get collected? Do you have an agent looking after those properties, or your management company does that for you?
Yeah, so we've got our own lettings company called Letco. So in certain locations, we've got certain management companies where we, for example, can't manage it, or we need a local managing agent within those areas.
So you outsource it to them.
We outsource it. But then shout out to Reese. I think Reese is on here. So Reese manages all of our properties through Letco as well. So everything other than that then goes through our own management company. And shout out to Cass as well. So Cass is our project manager. He's the one on the ground that does all the refurbs as well.
And so since that one property to today, you mentioned that you've turned around 50 odd properties. In such a short period of time, you've turned around so many. Didn't you ever think that it's going to be risky to go out and do so many properties at a certain amount of time? You know, like 2 years is a really short period to turn around 50 properties. I mean, did you ever think that it would be risky, or no, you just went in straight? From that one experience that you saw about Manchester and the other properties that you took on, how did it sort of end up? How did you end up in getting those sold?
You've got to remember one thing. So even though I did it within 2 years, I was in property for 5 years. So I was in property for 3 years before that, and I've been in property for about 5 years. So within those 3 years, I researched, I did a lot of, I've got a lot of background information, spoke to people, networked with people. So there was a lot of, I guess, time spent doing the research and getting all the due diligence done beforehand, getting the model together before I actually started to do it. So if I started doing that within the first year of being in property, I'd be worried. But because I did that in the third year of being in property, I wasn't as worried because I had the knowledge and the experience in terms of what I wanted to get out of it. So I knew the model, and I just really wanted to start implementing the model.
And when you do your calculations on what properties that you want to buy or whatever, I know you mentioned that you track the price and you track the property, you track the location. Do you sort of use any Excel spreadsheets or anything like that to bring your numbers to you, or no, you have it calculated in your mind that this is what I'm going to pay for it, this is what I'm going to make, this is my rental return, and if I refinance it, this is what I'm going to make out of it. Do you go with that, or no, you see a spreadsheet
Yeah, to
giving
be
you
honest
those
with you,
analysis?
so I started off with spreadsheets. That's how I
Yep.
started off. Then I started to do it all mentally because that's the kind of person I like to do things quickly as I go along because I like numbers and I can do numbers. But then I realized that even though I can do it in my head, the team needs to understand more about the numbers. So I started to go back to spreadsheets. So now I'm using spreadsheets again only because everyone else around me needs to understand the numbers behind things as well. So whether I've got an investor on board or whoever it is, they need to know fundamentally how much we've spent on something, how much we refurbed it, how much we bought it, and how much we refinanced it. And then what is the return on investment, return on capital employed, all of those figures as well. So yeah, I went from using spreadsheets to not using them to now using them again, I guess.
And now you mentioned about investors as well. So you do joint ventures when you buy a property and you sort of develop them and you have these investors with you. What sort of returns do these investors get at the end of their investment?
Yeah, so for me, I quickly realized that I could do things on my own and have everything for myself. But in reality, I'm not going to go far enough and I'm not going to enjoy the process either. So for me, the most important thing was to say, right, how can we go further, but with other people on board? So, it was really, really important that we worked with investors. So we work with investors in two ways, just to make it as simple as possible. Number one is they do what we call loan notes. So they'll lend us a certain amount of money, let's say it's £100,000. And at the end of that term, so maybe a year term, for example, they'll get a fixed interest rate back. So it might be 8%, 10%. So for example, they'll get back £110,000 at the end of the year.
Gotcha.
They'll get security with that. So they might get a personal guarantee with me. They'll get maybe a charge on an asset as well. So they'll get security to make sure they'll get that money back. And then also with regards to that model, it doesn't really matter if we make money, we don't make money from a property for them because they have a security. They're going to get their money plus the interest.
Of course.
And one thing I always say to people that look at investing is look at the return of the investment first. So making sure you're going to get your initial capital back, then start looking at the returns because people advertise these crazy 30, 40, 50% returns. And it's like, well, there's no security there to back it up. And usually crazy returns means that there's obviously a crazy investment there. So you've got to be careful. So for me, yes, our returns aren't as high as some people would like them to be,
but they're
consistent. You're going to get your money back. And that's the main thing. It's a scalable model. The second way we do things is mainly on sort of the, we build investment portfolios, but we also do flips as well. So we do joint ventures. So people are coming in and putting the money up front. We put in what's called the sweat equity. And that's the whole team, whether it's designing, the layout, the purchase, the sourcing, the project, everything, all end to end, including the project management at the back end as well. And what they will get is 50% of any of the profits. So whether it's 50% of the income or 50% of the profit if we end up selling it as well. So they put the money in, they get their money back out, and then they get the profit on top of it, 50%.
So these are the two main ways that you have joint ventures on board. So
exactly.
Are you just buying properties which are ready, or you're also building your own properties, like on buying a plot of land and building, developing properties?
Yeah, so we do a whole host of things. So at the minute, we've just delivered 4 projects. So we've got about 9 projects on the go right now. We've just put in another 2 in the pipeline as well. And we've got everything from small little buy-to-lets to we're doing commercial conversions into flats to new builds as well. So the reason I've deliberately done it in this way is so we can really have a multitude of experience. So when we get deals that come to us, we can see if it's a piece of land, etc. Sorry, cut out there for a second.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
It's all right. Sorry, I had a call come through.
That's fine.
So now that we've spoken about the whole of your career and what you're doing, what's next in the pipeline?
So really next for me
with all
is
this
just
COVID and everything lockdown and all that sort of stuff going, how are you possibly thinking of scaling up your business?
For me, the main thing now with COVID, it's actually pumped me up even more to really scale what we're doing more. Because I think a lot of the competition have really suffered as a result of COVID. And it makes me realize and appreciate the way we've set our businesses up in that specific way is really, really good, because we've set it up deliberately for times where we're going through COVID or any kind of recession that we would go for. We're very, very, what I would think, we've set the model up to, I'm not going to say the word recession proof, but I'm going to say disaster proof. So whenever we have disasters, because we're quick, we can think on our feet, we get things done really, really agile, you know, in an agility type manner, I guess. So as soon as COVID hit, the first thing we did was, right, let's do a risk analysis plan on the businesses. Where's the risks at? Right, how can we mitigate those risks? So the risks was not being able to source materials. Maybe some of the funders were going to be pulling some of the funding lines. You know, maybe the labourers aren't going to be able to get on site to obviously do the builds. Figured out
And
what the risks are.
possibly rent-wise, the properties that are on rent, maybe you get hit on that as well because people can't afford to
Exactly.
pay their rents and all that kind of stuff. So they would
Exactly.
have had a. So how did you come up with the plan to
So then we
fix
did a
those?
plan. So the plan was, so for example, on the rental side of things, the first plan was, right, who's actually paying all of our tenants? So where is all the income coming from? So some of them were benefit tenants, getting it from the government. Some of them were tenants working for the likes of Tesco. Some of them were tenants working in factories or warehouses. You know, so every single tenant was different where they're getting their income from. And most of our tenant types were actually quite secure.
Okay.
We contacted all of our tenants as well, made sure that they can pay. They said, we've got no problem, we can
Yeah.
pay. And we just kept really, really good, close communication with them all. So that was on the rental side of things. And to be honest with you, everyone's paid. And since COVID has hit, we've had everything pretty much full as well. All of our properties have been fully let. We have no voids in our portfolio whatsoever at the minute. So it's been better than we've ever had, to be fair. But yeah, just in terms of, sorry, to go back to your question as well, in terms of what we're going to be doing now, it's more of the same, really. So we've understood the model. We know it works. We're scaling it up. I always think rinse and repeat. We've spent so much time and effort to get to where we want to get to. We're just going to rinse and repeat the model and just really scale it further. So, you know, work with more investors and then obviously getting more people on board.
Yep.
You
Sorry.
back?
Just get
No, it's fine.
keep getting these calls coming through. So before I wrap up with you, Seth, if you can share some light and some positive energy on the fact that, like I mentioned before as well, a lot of negative sentiment around us with COVID, with lockdown, with redundancies, with people going bust with their businesses, you know, a lot of property developers, property owners cannot shift their properties. What sort of positive advice would you like to give them today so that they can take that on board and move on with their life and forget about all this negative sentiment that's around us?
Yeah, so, and I think I touched up on this at the beginning, which is if I didn't get started 5 years ago, and I got started with one little deal, basically, someone came to me with an opportunity and I got started with that deal. I didn't think about a business plan, I didn't think about anything. From that little opportunity, I am at where I'm at today, right? So the point is, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just start out. If you don't start out now, you're not going to get to where you want to get to. And
Of
you've
course,
seen how life has taken me from being a pharmacist to having a pharmaceutical business to having now a property business. And even within property, I have different property businesses as well. So
of course.
people need to get started. Don't worry about, stop worrying really is what what do people really have to lose is what I'm going to say. Because, life's too short sometimes. So you want to just, you want to live life to the max and you want to enjoy what you're doing. So if you're in
Absolutely.
a job and you're not enjoying it, figure out what you would enjoy and try and pursue that, Or if you are in a business and you're worried about trying to scale it up and do something different, just go ahead, just do it. What's the worst that is going to happen? Obviously, you need to be conscious that there's certain risks that are not worth taking. But, most of the time, take the risk, learn from it. That's the best case is you're going to fail, but you're going to learn from it. So it's not really a failure.
Absolutely. I mean, the other day I was reading a quotation from David Meltzer, and he mentioned that there's not one successful person on this planet that has not failed miserably.
Yeah, that's
So,
true.
you know,
That's
it's
so true.
absolutely what you're saying. But thank you so much for taking out the time, Saif,
No
and
problem.
coming on here and sharing all that knowledge about your career path of where you were to where you are today. You know, it's absolutely amazing. And I wish you all the best for many more projects to come. And I hope I may be able to sell one of them.
Thanks a lot. No, that sounds good. Really, really good to be on board as well. Thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you so much. Take care.
All right, take care. Speak soon. Bye
Bye
now.
bye. Bye. So that was Saif from SDGB Properties, who's a property trader, investor, and developer. Do hit him up if you're looking for any opportunities in terms of doing JVs or investing into his projects. Quite a great share on how he moved from pharmaceuticals to owning 50 odd properties and turning them around. Absolutely amazing. Thank you to him, and thank you to all the viewers that tuned in this evening. Keep on tuning in, listening to these live sessions. They are, I mean, I don't say it. The people come and share their knowledge, share their positivity. So come and listen to them and see how they have done it. So thank you so much. Enjoy whatever you're doing. Have a great evening. Bye bye.